and magnificent works of nature, a spectacle of imposing forces shaping the landscape. Not a single detail has been created by chance, not one crack in the rocks, nor the form of the reef, nor the position of a sea cliff. The stones sculptured by the elements are alive, they change and transform. Parts of them are dragged far away and amassed in the sediments of the oceanic seabed. An earthly landscape isn't something static, cold, powerless. On the contrary, it's a story of millions of years of storms, climate changes, and corrosive agents. Nothing in this landscape is casual. Every detail has been designated with precision from the combination of a series of events. Anyone who goes underwater can easily observe how the environment surrounding him changes constantly. According to the depth, the geographical area, the great movements of the substrate and its composition too. Now, the fact that they are made of rock or sand create completely different conditions. And in these situations, we find animal and vegetable organisms which are completely different from one another. Professor Andrea Beluscio is an expert in the study of marine ecosystems and the dynamics which rule them. Underwater landscapes are created in this way. This bunch of rocky natural substrates, the geological formations that are more or less shifted on this sandy seabed, which at first sight looks rather monotonous. They are then populated by organisms which are animal or algae, or colored plants that are extremely adaptable to this particular environment. These differences are created by the architects of the sea. They come from several factors which mold the forms underwater and the organisms at the bottom of the sea. The architects of the sea are hydrodynamism, the movement of the waves, the movement of the currents, the light and depth, The hydrodynamism, for example, especially in the most superficial areas, is the one that, more than all the others, determines and molds the rocky coasts. The rocky coasts are hit continuously, pounded by the waves and the currents, which cause rifts and the crumbling of the rocks. These rocks fall into the water and are then molded again, broken up and transformed into small pieces. It is transformed into coarse sand, and then it is slowly transformed into ever-increasing finer sand. Again, it's the motion of the waves which then determines the distribution of the sediments along the seabed. So we find in lower depths coarser sediments, and the fine sediment is carried away by the motion of the wave. The wave motion allows this sediment, this very fine sand, to become amassed on greater depths. More than 90% of the seabed is covered by sediments. They are covered by sand, coming from the crumbling of external rocks. But it also comes from the deposit of rivers, from the hinterland, or from the death of other organisms, like animals and vegetables. Maritime organisms, however, prefer hard substrates, a rocky seabed. For example, the rocky faces which originate from the tectonic phenomenon, from underwater volcanoes. These are the places on which the most evident, most spectacular and most colorful life develops. Underwater, there are many architects of various levels at work. There are the architects that work on the large scale, the tectonic, which builds up the morphology of the seabed, and on this morphology, the architects of the middle level are in operation. The hydrodynamism and the wave motion that set in. The intensity of the light, the sedimentation rate, and all these factors are those which then go on to determine and characterize what would be the underwater landscape that the diver observes. In the most superficial environment, the element that is most at work is the wave motion, which continuously sweeps the seabed and therefore keeps it clean, taking away the finest sediment in favor of the coarse sand, or on rocky seabeds, on the rocky faces. This is the wave motion, or better still, the current that brings the nourishment and life. It's the one that designates the landscape of the rocky face. Descending deeper on the rocky seabed, it isn't the hydrodynamism which molds the animal sediment, but it's the architect light. The action of the architect light is easily seen a few meters from the water. For example, you just have to observe a boulder, a rocky face, even in shallow water, and you will soon see how the superficial part of the sediment is dominated